Hi everyone. Well, I'd like to give you my commentary on the recent raid on Rawsome Foods in California. Rawsome Foods raided a sad day for America. It certainly is. On the 3rd of August, Rawsome Foods was raided for the second time in like a year. Last year, you may have seen the footage where the cops came in with their guns drawn and raided it like they were raiding some kind of, terrorist cell. Well, it happened again this year, and this time the owner, James Stewart, and the farmer who was providing the goat's milk were both arrested and held for on over $100,000 bail each, which is actually more than the amount of bail that's usually set for murderers. A couple of strange things about this is that, number one, it's actually not illegal to sell raw milk in California. The reason they got raided for selling raw milk, which should be legal, is that they hadn't applied for permits. And the second thing that's really outrageous about this is that when the cops came in, they didn't abide by the search warrant, which was to just take samples. They actually destroyed the entire inventory of the store. All the milk and all the cheese and even the vegetables, they just carted them off. This is the government who's supposed to be in charge of, looking after our security, coming in and acting like mafioso thugs over raw milk? Well, Natural News covered this quite in depth over how they overstepped their boundaries and also who authorized this, which was a woman named Michelle Le Cavalier, and Mike Adams from Natural News is trying to figure out who exactly she is and why she is behind this. Now here's a video about the raid covered by Reason TV. Rawsome Foods raided again. And what's interesting here is that the woman that you see in this video mentions that they were targeted. They probably targeted for a lot of reasons, namely that the government doesn't want people to have food freedom. But she didn't go into all that. She just said that they came after them because although it is legal to sell raw milk, you're supposed to have a permit from the government. However, Rawsome Foods is operating on the private side. It's a private club where people have to pay a membership. They're selling unpasteurized milk without a license operating on the private side. So they can't apply for the licenses, or they would be placing themselves under the jurisdiction of the government by entering into contract with them. So as long as they're private and unlicensed, they should be out of the jurisdiction of the government. So in theory, that should apply, and the government should respect the fact that Rawsome Foods is operating lawfully under common law and on the private side. And so this is what's really interesting to me, because I've met a lot of people who are into the whole free man thing and the difference between public versus private and what the government has and does not have jurisdiction over with their acts and statutes. And supposedly, they should not have jurisdiction over what is done on the private side. And this is how Rawsome Foods is trying to avoid being under the jurisdiction of acts and statutes. In theory, that's how it should go. But in practice, the government appear to be a bunch of thugs who do whatever they want. So they're operating on the private side and they're out of the jurisdiction of the government. And that's probably why the government thugs have it in for them. Because this isn't just about food freedom, this is about freedom in general. And the bigger problem is it all has to do with centralization. We used to have many more thousands of small family farms in Quebec, and now it's reduced to something like 5,000, and they're mostly just big, huge industrial dairies. The animals aren't well treated, it's not clean, etc., etc. And so it really benefits the agribusiness industry to have these kind of laws in place, because their milk needs to be pasteurized. Now, if people had an alternative of actually getting clean, raw, living superfood milk, well, that would be, terrible competition for the agribusiness industries. And since corporations run America and Canada, our laws are in favor of what's in the interest of the corporations and not the people. So the corporations run everything, and it kind of makes us feel disempowered, but yet there's supposedly this remedy of operating on the private side. So that's why I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Raw Foods. I certainly hope the whole thing just gets thrown out of court, not only for them being out of their jurisdiction, but for completely not following due process, overstepping their boundaries, disregarding the limits that were given in the warrant, throwing away all the inventory. I mean, that itself should disqualify the whole thing, I think. So we'll see what happens, and I totally support Rawsome Foods and organizations like that. I want to thank them for their courage and, for doing what they're doing, fighting this battle that we're fighting for our own food freedom. They're at the front lines. So thank you, Rawsome Foods, even though I don't shop there because I'm in Montreal. But thanks for fighting the fight, and thanks for listening to me, everyone, and I'll see you next time.